Okay, get comfortable. This might be a long one. This is a set released by Arrow Video on Blu-ray called Years of Lead. And that title refers to a period of time in Italy where crime was really, really rampant in the early 70s, early to mid 70s. And this is a series of films that none connected really to each other, but all represent that period of time, that were shot during that period of time and have that kind of content in them. They're all films I'd never heard of. As far as I know, I'd never heard of any of these. A lot by filmmakers and with actors that I've seen, or you may have seen in a lot of Italian films over the years, especially Italian crime films. And this is like one of the best things that has crossed my Blu-ray tray in a long time. This is a set that I was given this as a review copy. This is one I would highly recommend buying. I would go out and buy this. If somebody said, here, watch this, now give it back, I would go out and buy this. Or if I had watched this streaming, because this is really, really solid stuff. I love Italian crime movies from the 70s. Italian genre stuff in general I'm a fan of. I love spaghetti westerns. I love the crime films. I love the giallo and horror films. Just because I'm not going to say nobody did it better, but they did it in such a unique way that they're always more fun to me. Throw any Italian crime film at me, throw me any giallo, throw me any spaghetti western, and there's going to be enough in there to sink my teeth into that it's going to be worth it for me. Even the ones that aren't as good or that great have elements that I really like. So digging into this set was a feast for my brain. I really, really, really love this. So I'm going to occasionally be looking over here and maybe I'll cut those out, I don't know. I'm occasionally be looking over here at my notes because there's a lot, and it was a while ago that I watched this. First up is The Savage 3 from 1975. This is directed by Vittorio Salerno. It stars his brother, actually, in the police captain role, Enrico Salerno, who was also seen in Bird with the Crystal Plumage, the Dario Argento film, also playing a police inspector. Here, much meatier role. I like him a lot better. Much better performance by Salerno as a police inspector in Savage 3 than Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Also stars Joe Dallesandro, who is mostly known as being in a couple of Paul Morrissey, Andy Warhol movies, but he did a lot of work, or several films, in Europe around this time. So the basic story of The Savage 3 is the titular Savage 3 are these three like working class guys who work at various levels in a factory who are just bored, and they just go out and they commit small crimes, and then they commit violent crimes, and they start just their malaise and unhappiness in their own lives and boredom keep kicking it up the level of severity of the crimes they're committing. And Salerno is the cop who's trying to track them down. This is really good. I'm going to say this about all of these. I loved this set. The three titular characters are just dirtbags that you can't wait to get caught and given their comeuppance. They're arrogant and cruel, and they just don't care about anybody but themselves. And you see their home lives, which is really strange because these guys work in factories. They're three good-looking young guys. Their home lives are all more or less unhappy for some reason. And at night, they just go out into the streets of Turin and mess stuff up. And beautifully shot. Great locations of Turin from 75. Great score like these films typically have. And overall, just a fun, dirty, not inappropriate, although it is at times, just a fun, mean, down and dirty crime film from the 70s, which I like. These all have that similar vibe. They're these flashes of Europe in the 70s, various aspects of Italy and Italian life in the 70s, all shot predominantly on location. So you see the stores and the streets and the cars and the clothes and all that stuff. And it's just various aspects. And a lot of these films, it's 2 per disc. I believe it's 6 films, 2 per disc. And they pair well together, as it were. So there's a 40-minute interview with Joe Dallesandro on this disc about his work in Italy, which is fascinating. And Joe Dallesandro is so funny now. He just looks like this, average working-class Italian guy, older guy, somebody's grandfather or something in this interview. It's such a huge contrast to, everybody gets older and changes, but it's just so funny that if you saw him on the street now, you'd be like, hey, it's Joe from up the street. And you wouldn't think it's this same dashing guy who was in all these films in the 70s. He's just this unassuming, kind of funny, kind of jovial guy telling these stories, which is really cool. Also an interview with the director, and an actress from the film that were shot in 2017. So Savage 3, very, very cool. Second on the set is Mario Imperioli's Like Rabid Dogs from 1976. Now the trailer for this sells it as a shocking expose of today's society and all that. And in many cases, these probably were. This is a similar tale to the previous film, in which you've got this group of people, a couple guys and their female friend, and they're basically striking out against people who are dealing with one of the kids' wealthy industrialist father. They're striking out against his capitalistic cohorts and all these kind of things like that, because they're anti against all that. And the police are on their trail. They figure out kind of that it's these people doing it, and it's a cat and mouse game between the police and this amoral group of people, much like the previous film, who are trying to keep doing what they're doing and striking out against the ruling class, and the police are trying to stop them before they do more damage and kill more people. Again, a gritty film, looks fabulous. Great music score. The extras on this actually have the music cues from the film. They also have interviews with the crew and the trailers. I really enjoyed the Savage 3 Like Rabid Dogs. See, I have to keep looking at the notes. I watched this set a while before I recorded this, and I'm remembering a lot of the aspects of it, but not all of it. So overall, it's fun. I mean, it's a very tense, very good thriller. Will the police catch these three dirtbags before they do even more damage based on their mental issues and priorities and prejudices and daddy issues, or will they get away with it? You kind of know they're not going to get away with it, but it's a fun watch, and it goes well with the previous film on the disc. So now we go over to disc 2. Disc 2 begins. Okay, this might be my favorite disc on the set. This is like the wild action pairing of films. Disc 2 begins with Massimo Dallamano's Colt 38 Special Squad from 1976. This movie was a blast. This movie was great. This basically starts off with a cop is leading this squad who's trying to bust up criminals and organized crime, and the bad guy he winds up killing the brother of a bad guy. The bad guy goes and winds up wiping out kills his wife. So this cop is racked with guilt and fury, and he says to his superiors, "We need tools commensurate with the criminals, on the same level as the criminals, to be able to fight the criminals. We need bigger guns, and we need dirt bikes." And boy, howdy do they get them. So there's this great training sequence where it's all these cops on dirt bikes out in this training course somewhere, and they're going up off jumps and doing all kinds of crazy maneuvers and firing at targets and all this. And their instruction is aim only for the legs. We don't want you to be a kill squad. It's a different movie. We don't want you to be a kill squad. Just aim for the legs. You just need to incapacitate these bad guys. So then thus begins yet another cat and mouse race here between the criminals and the police to try to take these bad guys out. This was a total blast. Really good action in this movie. There were moments where I was yelping and giggling that the action was just so rough and tumble and insane. I believe, like most good action films of the 70s and 80s in Europe, I think it was the Remy Julien stunt team who did the driving in this. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure his name was all over some of these movies. And I just loved this movie. Colt 38 Special Squad was a blast. This was less torn from the headlines, hand-wringing about social issues that was going on in Italy at the time, and more Dirty Harry came out, and boy, wasn't that movie great. Because it's big, long guns, and it's dirt bikes. And as my friend Isaac says, it's the 70s if there's a dirt bike in the movie. And if there's not a dirt bike in the movie, it might not be the 70s. Anyway, we always laugh about that. Colt 38 Special Squad starts off disc 2 of Years of Lead by Arrow Video, and I loved it. I was like, oh boy, if they're all going to be like this, we need Years of Lead Part 2. And there's one point in the movie where the bad guy drives past the fountain that you see at the beginning of the movie Deep Red, if you're an Argento fan, an Italian horror movie fan. Music by Stelvio Cipriani, who does a long interview. He does these great interviews in these Arrow sets where he'll sit at a piano and he'll say, so the scene was this, and I decided maybe a melody like this would do. And he basically shows you how he composed the score for the film. So that's fantastic. That's on here. Colt 38 Special Squad. I'm going to keep saying it over and over again. It's definitely worth checking out. It's only available, I could be wrong, but I think it's only available as part of this Arrow set in the US. Second film on disc 2 it just ups the ante for me here. This is Highway Racer from 1977. It stars a clean-shaven, no lip caterpillar, Maurizio Merli as a hotshot automotive cop who wants, again, much like Colt 38 Special Squad, wants better tools to fight the bad guys. It opens with this crazy car chase, and he's like, I don't have a hot enough car. I don't have a muscle enough car to be able to beat these bad guys. So basically, this is a young youthful wannabe automotive maniac who is deemed to not be competent enough an automotive maniac. So he is paired with an elder policeman, a former high-level automotive maniac, to train the young cop to be a better automotive maniac so that he can infiltrate a gang of automotive maniacs and basically take down the bad guy. So he's paired with an older cop who used to be the hotshot hotshot wheelman police officer, a decade or two earlier. And there's a training sequence, and it's him on a track being taught how to be, as I said earlier, a better automotive maniac. And it's great. And the stunts in this movie are nuts. And there's a scene where a stuntman, at least I really hope it was a stuntman, gets hit by a car. And I rewound it through several times. I'm like, he really got nailed by that car. And nuts. It's, again, certified Remy Julien in this one. I can say it's in my notes. Remy Julien stunt team who did a lot of the car chases for all the best action movies done in Europe in the 70s and 80s. He's present here. This movie's nuts. It's wonderful. It's fun. It's a lot funnier than the previous, later in tone than the previous films in the set. It's funnier at times than the others. It's not a flat-out comedy, but it's got some good laughs in it. Highway Racer was just a blast. It lives up to its title. I really, really enjoyed this one a lot. This has, what does this have for extras? It has a film historian interview. A lot of these were released, I think, previously in Europe by other companies. And I think it's Camera Obscura put them out. So there's a whole lot of previous interviews done years ago with these people. And it's Highway Racer. Again, this disc 2 on this set was the one that spoke most to the inner automotive maniac in my heart. So over to disc 3. So disc 3 is just one film. It's and then actually jump back a little bit. This goes back to 1973, and it's a film entitled, it's another Salerno film entitled "No, the Case is Happily Resolved." And this is an interesting one. This almost feels like a Hitchcock kind of story here, where this fisherman is out by himself fishing, as one does when you're a fisherman alone near a body of water with a rod in your hand. And he witnesses a murder. He witnesses a pretty savage murder by this sort of somebody who turns out to be a respected member of society. For some reason, he does not report the murder, and he hesitates. And before he gets a chance to report the murderer reports the murder, and he reports the fisherman as being the perpetrator of said murder. So you have this film where suddenly this guy who witnessed a crime is being accused publicly of the crime and is sort of hiding out and on the run. And how does he avoid capture? And how does he ultimately get the police to see and believe that the person who reported the crime is actually the criminal? This was good. This was obviously not light in tone, and also not really stripped from the headlines like some of the other films were. But this was very interesting. It very much felt like a Hitchcock movie. It's one of those paranoid protagonists where it's like you witnessed something, and either like with Argento, it's always you witness something and the bad guy's going to come get you, and you need to figure out what you saw and put the pieces together before you're killed by the bad guy. But in this case, it's like somebody who's very, very respected and believable and believed just said that you killed somebody. Maybe provided a little evidence to that fact that seems to look like it jibes. And it's your word against his. And who are you? You fisherman. So at any rate, I'm wrapping it up. Years of Lead is amazing. These are all solid movies that I had never heard of, that as far as I know, were never easy to see in this country, probably never really released in this country. And here they are, looking amazing with really cool, informative supplements from Arrow Home Video. There was actually a moment in one of these movies where a car, point of view shot of a car driving goes past a drive-in marquee, and I paused it. I'm a drive-in guy, what can I say? And it was the Italian title for Mel Brooks' silent movie. It was playing at this drive-in in 1976 when one of these films was shot. So that's one of these things I love about stuff that's shot on location is signage. old signage and movie marquees and stuff like that. So anyway, I ramble. I've been going on for a long time. Years of Lead, one of the best releases of 2021 for me, Arrow Home Video.